Harris must answer to voters for her record as border czar, but she is also facing questions about her record as the San Francisco district attorney. And one case that's bringing this into focus is the 2010 death of law student Drew Rosenberg. Now, Drew was hit and killed at a stoplight by an illegal immigrant driver who was arrested just months earlier for driving without a license and let back out on the streets after Harris's office dropped a charge against him. Drew's father wrote to Harris shortly after, saying he and his son actually supported her bid to become California's district attorney general, and writing, "For my son Drew, it would be the last vote he ever placed. My son is dead because the DA did not believe that driving without a license is a big deal." Joining me now is Don Rosenberg, Drew's father and the president of Advocates for Victims of Illegal Alien Crime. Don, the details of what happened to your son and how his case was handled range from tragic to infuriating. I gave a brief summary, but in your own words, tell us what happened.
Well, in November 2010, my son was in law school. He was coming home that evening on his motorcycle, riding through San Francisco streets. So he was going very slowly, a lot of traffic at rush hour. Gallo was going in the opposite, Roberto Gallo, the illegal alien, was going in the opposite direction. He tried to make a last-second left-hand turn. My son was still in the intersection, and they collided. He was not going, my son was barely moving. He wasn't going very fast at the time either. But instead of had he stopped, my son would be alive. They collided. My son flew over the front of his car, and then he tried to flee. So he accelerated, driving over my son's body. My son's helmet had come off. So he backed and wedged under Gallo's tire. He backed up, driving over him a second time, then went forward a third time. Another motorist had jumped out of his car, stood in front of Gallo's car. He stopped. Gallo's rear tire was on my son's abdomen, and 5 men had to lift the car off of him. He was dead on the scene.
So Don, 5 months before this happened, this illegal immigrant was arrested for driving without a license. And as San Francisco District Attorney Kamala Harris's office dropped that charge, and some people might be wondering why, and it's political. It was seen as if you charge an illegal immigrant for driving without a license, that's seen as anti-illegal immigrant. So this guy was let go. If that charge hadn't been dropped, would he still have been in jail at the time he killed your son?
He wouldn't have been in jail, but what would have happened, his car would have been impounded, and it has to stay, by law, impounded for 30 days. You know, what I learned after the fact is typically when illegal aliens' cars are impounded and they sit for 30 days, it costs them too much money to pay the fines and get the car out, so they just abandoned it. Now, he certainly could have bought another car. He could have driven again, which he did, and he got the car out in less than 18 hours. The city gave the car back, which is a violation of the law. So it could have happened. But the other thing which is interesting in this case, Gallo was in the country illegally, but he had been given temporary protective status. And with that, either 1 felony or 2 misdemeanors, and you get deported. So he would have had 1 misdemeanor and maybe would have driven more carefully.
Yeah, he may not have been in jail, but he either wouldn't have had a car, or you don't know the what ifs, but it might not have been what ultimately happened to your son. Your son's life mattered, full stop, and I think no matter where you are on the political spectrum, you could look at what happened and realize that there was a grave miscarriage of justice that took place. Something in the system did not work, but politics here do come into play because now Kamala Harris is running for president. And she's running a law and order campaign, saying she used to be a prosecutor, fighting crime, prosecutor for president candidate. When you hear her say those things, what goes through your head?
She's a liar. I mean, nothing more than that. Look, as the DA, she didn't follow the law. She then, failed up to the attorney general. She didn't follow the law. now she's the vice president, and she doesn't follow the law. So there's really no reason at all we should think if she gets elected president, she's going to follow the law. And the thing that's really important, my son's case is not an outlier. They weren't prosecuting anyone in San Francisco at the time, and they still don't, that drives without a license if they are in the country illegally. If you're not, you will get prosecuted. And California law is actually very strict about driving without a license. And in the law, there's a part that says it's necessary and appropriate to take additional steps to prevent unlicensed drivers from driving. Well, she didn't follow that either. And at the time, over 7,500 people a year were getting killed by unlicensed drivers. Not all of them were illegal aliens. 7,500 people a year, and you don't take that as a serious crime, there's something wrong.
There is. And the other part of this that I do want to bring up before we let you go is that this illegal immigrant was charged with felony vehicular homicide, and then the charges were reduced, and he served just 43 days in jail. As a father, I cannot imagine how you handled that outcome as well. Really quick final word to you on that.
Well, that's why for the past 13 years I've been out with other victims, trying to fight illegal immigration. Her office, the DA's office at the time, when she was the DA, they bungled the case massively. And I come to believe now that it wasn't incompetence, they did it on purpose. Illegal aliens have become a protected class in this country. And, as far back as 2010 in San Francisco and California in general, they were already protecting them.
Don, we know that reliving this isn't easy for you, but we thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're going to be thinking about your son, Drew, you as well, and your whole family. Don Rosenberg, thank you.
Thank you so much, Carly. I appreciate being on.
You're very welcome.
And we close on that.